This is KHOI 89.1 Story City Ames, and you're listening to I Am Able Iowa, where we discuss the ability and disability. I'm Nancy Baker Curtis. I'm a public school teacher, board president for the ARC of Iowa, and a parent advocate. I will be your host for today. Today, I'm super excited to share our guest. Our guest is not only the owner and CEO of Carolyn's Carts, she is a wonderful parent advocate, and I am super excited to present to you all Drew Lynn. Drew, thank you so much for joining us on I Am Able Iowa. Can you just take a minute and introduce yourself to the audience and just kind of take us back to that moment when you got the idea? First of all, what is a Carolyn's Cart and how did you come up with the idea for them?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My daughter, Caroline, was born in October of 2000. When we brought her home from the hospital, we thought she was a perfectly healthy baby. We knew nothing. As time went on, it became very obvious that everything was not perfect. And Caroline was diagnosed with Rett, R-E-T-T syndrome, Rett syndrome. She doesn't walk or talk, and she's tube fed. She's now 25. She's able to learn, but of course she is very impaired cognitively. And when she was around 8 years old, I was using shopping carts that the stores provided. She could still fit in everything. She could fit in the fun carts. But when she outgrew those, I honestly thought that there was a special needs shopping cart, and I asked my manager to please purchase one for his store because that's where I always shopped. And he said that there was not a special needs shopping cart. He never heard of one. And that's where it all started, out of a need for my own daughter.
I so identify personally with what you said. Only I couldn't use the children's shopping cart for my child. I actually had to put my child in the basket.
Right.
But then
Yes, I've done that before.
and then when you put them in the basket, where are you supposed to put the groceries?
Right, right. And it's so not dignified. And it's just, that's not what it was intended for. As moms, we have to make do. But yes, I feel you. I've done that. I've balanced the groceries around her. And I'm like, you know what? This is not okay.
No, it's not okay. And I I was so frustrated. He was too big to put into the infant portion of the cart, or because of the equipment we used, he would get stuck. And then I would be standing there trying to get him out, but then I'd end up having to put him back and take off leg braces and shoes. And it was so much work.
Right.
It was so much work that Drew, I quit taking my child to the store.
Right, right.
And that is the part that would make me so sad because that's what the inaccessibility cycle is all about. It's this idea that there aren't any challenges for people with disabilities with getting out and getting access because, well, we don't see people with disabilities out there. And these carts change that. I can't tell you how many times people have actually stopped me and said, "Where did you get that cart?" And I have to say, "Oh, over by customer service. There are two of them in our store. So all you have to do is go over and talk to customer service and you're welcome to use them." But most people don't know that. And once they know better, then they tell their friends and then their friends show up and they use them. And that's how we really challenge stigmas. And so I want to thank you for sharing that story. It really connected with me personally. So obviously your daughter is your inspiration for this. So and you shared with us her diagnosis, and I'm sure to this day, you and your daughter want to go shopping together, right? You want to be able to take your daughter out and do all of those typical mom and daughter experiences. That really must shape your vision for how you implement your business model, for how you go out and present these carts to potential retail sellers. So can you talk to us a little bit about that lived experience and how your daughter, Caroline, has really helped you shape this company?
Sure. Well, I go back to the day, she's 25 now. I go back to the days when she was in school. You know, schools by law have to accept the Carolines of the world. Um, you know, that when I would pick her up, I would run errands. You know, before Caroline's cart, I was coming home, dropping her off, hiring a babysitter if my husband wasn't home, and then going back out. So I think what Caroline's cart has done to shape my business is to scream and shout all the things that accessibility should be an obvious accommodation. And it's just not. And the more I looked into this and the more I was strategizing on how to do this, I just kept coming back to, if you're providing for able-bodied, if your business is going to roll out the red carpet for the able-bodied, why would you leave out the special needs community, which, as you know, is the world's largest minority group? So those fun carts, those are for toddlers that actually do walk. So I thought, if a store is going to have those just for fun, it really gave me hope and inspiration of, okay, well, if you're going to have that for the able-bodied, you can no longer discriminate, which I hate that word, but sometimes it's appropriate, the special needs community. So, you know, just having her in school and out in the community and seeing all the barriers that existed, it really just motivated me to keep going.
That's super inspirational. And we spoke a little bit about this prior to beginning the show. I've known about your carts forever and have asked stores to purchase them because of all the same things you said. The disabled community deserves the right to be able to access grocery stores and regular shops, just like everyone else. And this is a simple accommodation. Those little fire truck and ambulance carts have to cost way more to produce than what it would cost to produce something comparable for an adult.
Sure.
And so it just would frustrate me so much. Then once we got to the store, my request was always, let's take it a step further, right? Now we're in your store, we're spending our time, we're shopping, we're spending our hard-earned dollars benefiting you all financially. We'd like to use the restroom while we're here. Could we please have a height adjustable adult size changing table? Because any other customer who comes into these stores is able to access a restroom. They don't have to go out to their car to change their child who is too big for the picking up where we just left off.
Yeah, so can you give me an idea of like the feasibility price wise of these cards? I would imagine it's not too much of a burden for any store.
Oh, it's not at all a burden, and I'm glad you brought that up. Every single store that I have ever been in the United States, and it's been a lot over the course of my business, they all have many electric scooters. We've all seen the electric scooters. You know what I'm talking about. People hop on and they're motorized and off they go. Those are probably 3 to 4 times more expensive than Caroline's cart. Stores don't blink an eye. They do not blink an eye. Those are standard store equipment. So a store cannot say to me, we cannot afford Caroline's cart, when I just point to the entrance and they have 4 electric scooters that are less than half the cost. So thank you for bringing that up. Price is not an issue for any of them.
Do you still get pushback just because it's irregular?
Oh, 100%. Corporate Costco will not put, corporate Costco has said, and we've all heard of Costco, they do not see the need for Caroline's cart. They have told me no from day one. So anybody out there have a tie to corporate Costco, please let me know. I'm trying to get in to see them.
And that's so frustrating. Even that's often the same barrier that we hear around adult changing tables. They're expensive. A really good one to fit in a good universal bathroom may cost $10,000. for a piece of equipment that everyone, infant through adult, could be changed on. Everyone.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
if you have that adult changing table, you don't have a need for an infant changing table.
Of course not. Yeah, just need one. Make one universal. Duh.
Correct.
Right.
And it seems duh, but it's
Yeah.
this idea that there's some sort of stigma attached to providing these accommodations, that somehow there is some sort of a taxed burden or economic financial burden that is placed on the business. And we're laissez-faire, we're hands off when it comes to business. And I just like to challenge that, because most of these places would qualify for a federal tax credit by making their locations more accessible.
Wow.
And not only would they qualify for a federal tax credit, more than likely they would increase their revenue, because they would have more people with disabilities that would frequent those places and spend down their monthly amounts because they can't have any assets. And so I think it's just about dispelling those myths and those barriers.
Right. Oh, 100%. Challenge the status quo. I say that just because it's always been that way. People get hung up on that. I've seen it so many times. Well, we've just never had a Caroline's cart before. We've been okay. Well, no, because there was never a solution to that problem. Now there is. Challenge the status quo,
I agree with you. Challenge the status quo. And not only is disability the largest minority group in the United States, it's the group that any of us can be in at any time.
Anytime. That's right.
We can have permanent disabilities. We can have temporary disabilities. We're all aging into disability. And so we should be good stewards and caregivers to those who need it.
Right. 100%.
So obviously this innovation is born from your lived experience. And that perspective as a parent gave you insight. But they're also beyond just, the challenges of, places not wanting to say, that these are necessary. How did you get that first product made? Like, what sort of obstacles did you have to overcome in order to get that first prototype?
Oh, well, I needed a lot more money than I thought. It was harder than I thought. It took longer than I thought. Caroline's cart is very simple. It's not electronic. It's just, you've seen it. I just modified a cart, and it took me about a year to find a company that would make one prototype for me. It cost $28,000, and you could not even sit in it. So that was just for pictures. Then I had to find a manufacturer. What a lot of people don't know is there's 4 shopping cart manufacturers in the United States. I reached out to all 4 of them. I just was giving them an idea. I didn't want anything. Hey, here's what you need to do. Here is where you've missed the mark. Here is blah, blah. They all 4 shot me down, and they were not interested. So I was at a crossroads. Either I was going to accept no and be like, oh, well, I tried, or I was going to keep going. And I decided to keep going. I believed in it that much. So I had to go the non-traditional route. I found a manufacturer in another state that had never made a shopping cart, never made one. But he's like, I can do this. So he made me 100, cost me $100,000, which I didn't have. My husband and I had to fund this with our retirement. So it was incredibly risky. And then the big stores, all the Walmart, Target, they wouldn't buy from me because I was a nobody. So I had to seed the market with mom and pop stores. I had to go to the small chains, the ones that were independently owned, and ask them to take a risk with me. And praise God, they did. And that's when the demand really started. I had to create the demand for this product. I had to prove the product before any of the big dogs would pay any attention to me. So once I got these out there in the smaller chains, they took off like crazy. So manufacturing was very hard. It took me years to do it because I wasn't corporate America. Corporate America wasn't interested in doing this. But thankfully, I had the support of the world's largest minority group, and they helped to create that demand.
That's really powerful. And I keep thinking about so many of the things you're talking about, the how when you're responsive to the needs of the disability community, the disability comes out and supports, right?
Right. They do. They rally. It's, I walk the same road as them. I'm one of them. I wasn't asking anyone to do anything I wasn't willing to do myself. And that was to go out there and ask retailers to take a look at this, to reconsider this. And I always say that without that backing, Caroline's Cart would have never made it. I'm just one person. I could not change a culture by myself. I needed that community behind me to push this through. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And, I think about the business case for a store buying one, right? There's a lot of, frequently in marketing and sales, this term friction comes up. Um, the more friction is required to use a product or service, the less likely it is that that product or service will be purchased. Um, and so, like, I think about two grocery stores in the same town. If I'm a person that needs that cart and one has it and the other doesn't, that's an experience that takes away a lot of friction for me.
Sure,
And
of
so
course, you'll be store loyal to the one that's going to provide access. You will be store. I hear that all the time. I love Costco, but Costco refuses Caroline's Cart. So guess what? We are in every Sam's in the United States. And where do you think I'm loyal to? Sam's.
That's exactly right. And in fact, the other day when we were coordinating this interview, I was on the way to the grocery store, and the grocery store I chose to use was the one that had the Carolyn's Cart in it, because one of our local grocery stores has that and the other ones don't. And having that cart means that all the things you said, I don't need to use my respite hours. I don't have to wait till Saturday morning when we have supported community living, or I can go to the grocery store with my child whenever I want to, and we can go grocery shopping together. And isn't that something that is just a typical family experience? A parent grocery shopping with their kid. And while I can push a wheelchair and a grocery cart at the same time, I think other people want to use the aisle, right? Other people want to be able to get down that aisle and grocery shop too. And nobody should have to work that hard to just
Right.
do the basic stuff.
Well, even take Caroline's Cart out of the equation. Take those two stores. One of them has 0 carts. One of them has carts. Nobody is going to go to the store that has 0 carts. They're not going to do it. If you want to buy groceries, you got to have something, if you want to buy more than 2 things. So, but putting Caroline's Cart, it shouldn't be a different model. I shouldn't have to tell a different story or make up something about being loyal to how we shop. It's just common sense. I shop here because it is accessible and I'm able to do that with my family.
Uh, absolutely. I 100% agree. Um, as a business owner, I just want your response to this as I play devil's advocate for a second. Um, I think probably the problem that you run into a lot talking to these grocery stores is like there aren't any people in my area that need it, is probably their perception. What would you say to those people?
I say bologna and cheese. I say, first of all, this is not just for severely disabled children like my daughter. This is for the autistic child that might be a runner. This is for the child that has CP that just doesn't walk well. This is for the aging adult, the parent, the spouse that has dementia and cannot drive electric scooters. So the customer base for using Caroline's cart is extremely broad. It's way more broader than those toddler carts. Because guess who uses the toddler carts? Just the toddlers. Guess who can use Caroline's cart? Oh my gosh. You know, it's a much wider, broader margin than any cart they have in that store.
Yeah. Um, True, and I 100% agree. And I also think that there's like the cycle of inaccessibility to talk about here, where like you don't see those people in your store because
You're not
they're
accessible.
not accommodated. Yeah.
Right. That's right. Why would I? Yeah, if you don't have wheelchairs and if you don't have accommodations, of course you're not going to see those people in your store because they can't get in.
So when you were designing your cart, obviously it was important to you. You said the first ones that you made, you couldn't even sit in, right? Or it was like just to be able to see the design. And
Take it
that
off the
was
table, right?
right.
Pictures.
So when you persevere, you say, I'm not going to give up. This is so important. I believe in this. This is ridiculous that we can't go to the store too. And you finally have that real product. How did you make sure that it was truly going to meet the needs of that huge, diverse group of people you just mentioned? Right? Because you actually have to like sit in the cart to know what it's like or
Sure.
to use
Yeah,
it.
right. Although it was designed, you know, out of the need for my own daughter, I'm like, wow, she's only going to get older. So it was important to me that it holds someone up to 250 pounds, you know, so it's actually been tested for 35 pounds to 250 pounds. You know, that's a great, huge, that's a broad range. And that encompasses many, many users. It has a 5-point harness. So if you're smaller, you can secure in that if you need it, if you need the, you know, it's adjustable. So if you need it to grow, a lot of people don't even need the harness. You know, they don't have problems falling out. They just need the support while they're in the store. So yes, I wanted to make sure that during the design process, it would serve as many people as possible, adults included.
That's really evident. All of the things you mention are super true. And that's similar to like height adjustable adult size changing table design, right? We want to serve up to the maximum amount. My favorite feature is the feature you mentioned, the 5-point harness. And it kind of reminds me of the way a car seat is designed with the adjustable straps. And my son can sit in these without the harness, but you mentioned the elopers or the people who, might be tempted to slide out or,
Low muscle tone, somebody that needs a little extra support. Of course, you're right. Right.
and so those are some of the things that I really want our listeners to hear and know are a part of these carts. And what make them so unique is that they are willing to grow and adapt. And it's not a separate piece of equipment.
Right.
So you kind of mentioned the process of like getting these to market. You mentioned that you hired, somebody to prototype these for you. Um, I am curious because I don't manufacture or sell them yet, but I've invented a couple of products myself that I use every day.
Mhm.
And it was a very iterative process. Like I had to try a lot of things that didn't work before I found the things that worked really well. So what was that prototyping process like for you?
Through about maybe 3 or 4 prototypes, just, learning as I go. The first set of handles I ever did, I was like, okay, I don't like those handles. Those need to be streamlined. Um, the seat belt wasn't great at first. It needed to be more flexible. It needed to be easier. It needed to be, have the directions on it. Even a couple years ago, we redesigned, we called it Caroline's Cart 2.0. So the handles, the original handles were breaking, and because people were putting weight on them. So now we redesigned them so the handles can't break. So I think it's always evolving. I think you have to stay with the trends, and you have to make sure it's safe and all the things. So yeah, it's not really a I got my one prototype, let's go. I think it's a process, and it's going to evolve till you get the best version of that product.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to I Am Able Iowa, and we are speaking with our guest today, Drew Lynn. Drew is the owner and the CEO of Carolyn's Carts, and it is such an intriguing conversation. Today, you talked about that there are many major retailers who use your carts across the country. What's that impact when you go into your own store and you see somebody using your carts?
Goodness, it never gets old. It happens all the time. Typically, I have to go up to them. I have to introduce myself. It's always inspiring for me to hear stories of, oh my gosh, I wouldn't be here without this cart today. Oh my goodness, this was a game changer for my family. So again, never gets old, especially when I'm traveling and I'll go see one and I see somebody using it. I have to take pictures and do all the things, and you know, I create a little ruckus, but I mean, I can't help it.
And if you had the opportunity to speak to a family in a small rural community in Iowa whose store may or may not have these, whose store does not have these carts yet, how would you encourage them to talk to the store manager and to seek out information so that they could potentially purchase or get one of these carts?
Sure, we've made it very easy. If you go to my website, which is carolinescart.com, super easy, there is a link to print a request form. So all you have to do is print that. You give it to your store manager, and they have everything they need to place an order. And I encourage people to do that because most managers want to provide that, and they are happy to assist. So don't be afraid, because guess what? If your store doesn't have it and you need it, you're not going to be the only user of that. Others will use it. So do it for others in your community as well. Again, super easy. Just print off the store request form off of our website.
Now that you have these carts in more places, thank you for sharing that, by the way. I think that's great information, and we are all about empowering people. But now that we have more of these carts, and it does, once you see that people with disabilities, they're out, they're shopping, they're using these carts, it does create a mind shift. And it changes the way that people think about accessibility. I'm thinking about other major retailers where I've seen your carts like Target, and now they sell adaptive clothing, right? And it's no longer kind of faux pas to think about and market to a disabled population, but now it's kind of in vogue. Do you think that your carts have contributed to that movement?
I hope so. I know that I've had other entrepreneurs reach out to me and were inspired by what I did and said, now I've got a great idea and I'm going to, you know, challenge the status quo as you did. So I would love to think that Caroline's Cart has paved the way, made it a little easier, and brought some much needed attention to the world of inclusion and accessibility and equal access. You know, that's I used to hashtag all my photos of, you know, we deserve equal access.
I think that this is so interesting. And Zach, I'm really curious. You do inventing. You are kind of that Zach of all trades, entrepreneur. Um, from your perspective, how does this impact you as somebody who dabbles in invention and gets out there and is trying to create the world a little bit more accessible for those who come behind?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Drew. For me, creating the products that I've created has been about finding something in the world that I wish existed,
Mhm.
and then creating it in the hopes that it could not only help myself but other people. Um, and my products are like they're very niche. Um, they're like wheelchair mounts for electric wheelchairs for like a phone. Um, or other things. There's like a flashlight mount, like a keychain mount, just to like hang your keys on. Um,
Great.
bag hooks, that kind of thing. Um, but it really is about like making making my life, which is often not easy, easier. And I think about Carolyn's carts, right? Taking your kid to the grocery store, often hard no matter what, right? Um, And so the idea of being able to just make someone's day a little easier consistently, um, the power of the little things like that and how exponentially they can make life so much better, I find really cool and exciting. Um, and it makes me want to get off my butt and finally get my store off the ground and start selling this stuff because this has been a hobby for me for the last year and a half.
See, I'm here to motivate you, Zach. You can do it.
I feel like that we need like an accessibility or a disability themed Shark Tank, right? We
Not
need
believe you said that. I have been saying that for years, Nancy. I've been saying that for years.
because
Yes,
I think people don't know what they need until
sure.
they're actually exposed to it. Like I didn't know that that was the cart I needed until I saw
Until,
somebody post about that cart and I was like,
right,
oh, it does exist. And I
right.
feel like that's the same comments, Zach, that you got about your phone mount for your wheelchair was that as soon as you posted that, people were like, I want one of those. And it's like you don't even know what you need until you
Until you see
see
it. That's right.
somebody else who
That's
has
right.
it. And I think it's the same way with like the height adjustable adult size changing tables, right? And that's why, like you said, managers want to accommodate. Um,
Right.
I I think businesses are in the business of making product and selling them. They want to appeal to a broader market. And to think that the disability community is not a viable economic market is just dismissive and incorrect. Because I would argue time and time again that people and families with disabilities demonstrate extreme brand loyalty. And they do that because they feel as though they are offered a product or a service that truly meets their needs.
I was looking up something and I found it. I found this is a fact. The disability market contributes $18.3 trillion in purchasing power in the United States, touching 63% of the world's population. That is a fact, and I got it from the Global Economics of Disability report in 2024. So it's probably even higher now. 18.3. So the disability market is an economic powerhouse. We have money to spend. We are contributing to every local economy. 18.3 trillion annually. That's a number that can no longer be ignored.
And it's not just purchasing power, right? It's voting power, it's mobilizing change power. And Zach, I know this is a topic you're super passionate about. And I think that, Drew, this is why it was so powerful when you started to get the support of other not-for-profit organizations. We came in contact because you and our executive director at the Arc of Iowa, Doug Cunningham, had the opportunity to present this past year in November, I think it was, at the national convention that the Arc of the United States holds. The Arc of the United States is well known within the disability community for their advocacy, not just at a state level, but for their advocacy nationally. What did it feel like to have that sort of a large scale partnership with an organization like the Arc of the US? And how has that support from an organization like that advocacy group really helped influence you as both a person and a business owner?
Tell you this, it's probably been the biggest thing that's happened to Caroline's Cart. As you know, I think as you know, every cart that now comes off the manufacturing line is going to display the ARC logo. Did you know that?
I didn't. So
Okay.
that's amazing.
Yes, I have been working with Katie Nees, the president and CEO of ARC of the United States. We started this about a year ago. We put our heads together. Caroline is an ARC participant here in Alabama. And I'm like, wait a second. We are serving the same kind of people here. So I reached out to Katie, and now every cart, this started probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. Every cart, if you get a new cart in your area, you're going to see right under the Caroline Cart logo, the ARC logo, which will have a QR code. People can scan it, and it's going to bring great awareness to the ARC, the ARCs all over the country. And I think it's going to even help sell more carts, because people that won't listen to small town Alabama mom, they might listen to the ARC of the United States. So I think it was a huge partnership with each, my brand supports their brand, the ARC brand supports my brand, and I think it's going to be a win-win for the special needs community. I think it's going to help sell carts.
I agree. And we tend to be real partial to Katie. She's from Iowa. Don't know if you know.
Yes, I do.
And so we tend to be real partial to her. She's got good Midwestern values and roots. And she is not only an exceptional leader, she is well aware of the challenges that so many folks in Iowa, but around the country face when it comes to these access issues. So I'm so pleased to hear that their logo will be on the newly produced carts. That's such an exciting message, and what an honor to you and to them equally. So in addition to just trying to gain that visibility and credibility, what other sort of national advocacy organizations are helping move your mission forward?
That's probably the largest by far. I'm working with them. I actually had a call with them today, and I said, I want to leverage the ARC to help me get more groups behind this. You're in Washington, D.C. What's going on up there that I can go and present to? Years ago, I did present to the United States Access Board. I also presented to the National Council on Disability, both in Washington, D.C. I actually met Michelle Obama when she was the first lady years ago. She was the sitting first lady. I have a photo with her in Caroline's Cart. So, yeah, I know. Isn't that insane? So, any and every advocacy group that can get behind Caroline's Cart or any product for the disabled community is going to help create the demand and push that forward. And we need to utilize any and all of them.
I think you're spot on, Drew. You spoke about talking to Katie over the past year or so, or the members of the leadership at the ARC of the United States. It was approximately 2.5 years ago. I went to the national convention for the Arc of the United States that was held in Columbus, Ohio. And that session, they decided that they were going to go ahead and add a height adjustable adult size changing table because the state of Ohio has had such success in grant programs and having these tables. I know this last year they added the Momentum Refresh vehicle at the convention to make it accessible for those who were participating. And I think it just speaks volumes to this recognition of both an advocacy and a business organizational model that really supports the needs of the people that they're trying to empower and mobilize
Yeah.
by having these things there.
Right.
If you're going to be the leaders in this sort of organizational advocacy, well, then you better be the leaders in promoting that access. And I think
Right.
it just speaks volumes to the Arc of the U.S. for their spearheading their leadership this way.
Yep.
So, what advice would you give to other parents or people like Zach? They're trying to get their idea out there into the market. They want to improve accessibility in their community. What would you tell them?
I said it before, you have to challenge the status quo. You have to, secondly, build the demand. You've got to get support behind what you're doing. It's scary, it's risky. You need, and like I said earlier, I could not have got the cart across the finish line without nationwide support from every single state. So, yeah, build that demand. Start small if you have to. Start with friends and family. Be willing to take the risk and don't take no from someone who can't say yes. I think that is someone told me that years ago, and that is very, very true. When I would go in to sell the cart and someone would say, well, we're not interested. Well, do you even have the power to say that you are interested, that you could purchase this? So you just have to work things up the chain. And just not, if you believe in it enough, you'll keep at it. You're going to fail a lot. It's going to be hard. You're going to run out of money. But if it means enough to you, if you are, the cart to me was just such a no-brainer, and it just, I had to do everything I can to, you'll find a way to make it happen.
To me, that's really powerful advice. Don't take a no from someone who doesn't have the authority. And I feel like we as parents, and Zach, you may feel this as being, an independently living adult, we get told no a lot from people who think that, they have the power and authority, whether it's insurance companies or service providers or, restaurants or places that we're trying to go out and access. And I think it's kind of in our nature to just fight back. Like, you tell us no, well, then we're filing an appeal. You
Sure.
tell us no, well, then we're doing a grievance.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree, especially like a lot of times the no comes from a place of like aversion to the unconventional.
Mhm.
Of like their instinct is to say no because it's not quote normal. Um and I always remind people, especially like a really good example, I drive, out of state all the time, late at night by myself. Um that freaked people out when they found out that I was doing that. And they would always be like, that's not safe. And my favorite response was, thank you for your concern. I don't think you're qualified to tell me that. Right? Like,
Right.
because it's just a gut reaction and it's not based on any logic or reason. It's just this tendency to say, people like you don't do that.
Yeah.
And we do have to push back on that if we ever want that perception to change.
And changing perceptions, elevating conversations. That's what we're all about here on I Am Able. Um, and hopefully helping others craft a new vision and a new way forward for what it is that is possible and the potential. Um, I believe, like you believe, Drew, that every store that's above a certain capacity with a certain square footage that has a certain number of people that visit it per day should have an accessible restroom that is genderless and that should have a height adjustable adult size changing table. It just seems like a no brainer. And when you ask people, well, what if it were you? What if it were your mom or your child? Would you want to lay them on the dirty bathroom floor? They immediately become appalled at the suggestion that they would have to do that. But you and I both know, I think we all know on this call, that there are hard choices that you have to make when you're navigating the real world out there. And the obstacles and barriers that you face just to exist in a daily existence are massive. And so we need to be pushing these uncomfortable conversations. We need to be elevating these topics because if we're not willing to talk about it, why would the general public that doesn't experience these challenges be willing to engage in them either? You know, sometimes it's easier to be an eavesdropper or a voyeur than it is to be an active participant. But just because they're not actively engaged in that conversation, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're adverse to the idea. They just, to me, it's like they want to still learn more. They're curious. They don't understand the entire situation. And once you're able to show them your lived experience, show them why these accommodations matter, that they're not amenities, they're accommodations, right? And they're part of ensuring that equitable access, people's perspectives and mindsets start to change. And that is contagious. And I think that that's what's happening with your project, your Carolyn's Carts.
Yep.
So if we could look forward to that future, you're paving this new road, right? And when you're out there leading and trailblazing, it can be scary, you know, because you can feel alone, but you also feel confident in that you're paving the way for this next generation. What is your future vision for Carolyn's Carts?
To be standard store equipment in every store. And that means you, Costco, you know, there is popular as it is, as common as it is becoming, we still are experiencing pushback. So that is why I am here today. That is why I continue to do what I do until every store has it and we are standard store equipment.
And part of getting that standardization is doing the things you talked about, presenting at these national conventions. You mentioned the U.S. Access Board, talking to folks there. And those conversations, it's bigger than just shopping carts, right?
Oh, for sure. 100% bigger. Yes. It's about equal access.
And in my mind, equity and equal access, they really don't have a price tag. You can't put a price on dignity. You can't put a price on respect. It's about a mindset, right? Sure. So as you continue to move forward, what sort of conversations do you hope come from this interview and the work that you're doing?
I just hope it continues to open doors. I hope people that hear this will be inspired. I hope that people that don't have these in their stores will change that because it's not a big ask. It's not scary. Most want to help. And I hope to just continue to gain support, not only through the ARC, but through other organizations out there. Just to keep doing what I've been doing. It's getting easier because the cart is becoming more mainstreamed, yet there are difficult days when a store's like, we don't see the need. I mean, That's absurd and ridiculous. And we have to change that. And I'm speaking to the choir here. It it has to be a continual conversation at every level, at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. I mean, it's a nationwide conversation that has to stay in the forefront of our minds.
And it feels like that national conversation is happening more frequently. We've seen the return of the R word. We've seen some really prominent people mock individuals with disabilities. And I know how that impacts me as a parent of a child who I told you is non-speaking. Caroline is also non-speaking. But just because they don't speak with words doesn't mean they don't have anything to say.
Of course,
And
yeah.
and I feel like today, if possible, Caroline would have something to say about all this that's going on and something to say about the impact that these cards are having. What do you, as her mom, her so-called, I would call you her translator, right?
Her voice, yes.
Her voice, right? What would Carolyn say?
She is amazed. I know that. You know, uh, I am from small town Alabama. I didn't have the money, the time, I knew nothing about how to do this. I ran this company out of my minivan, 3 small kids, a husband that traveled. I think she's very proud of it. I think that looking back over all the trials and tribulations, she would say, it was so worth it, Mom. Yes, you did this for me, but look at the millions that this has happened. And Caroline's card is in 8 countries now. So I think it's very surreal for both of us. And I love when we're traveling and we're out of state to go into a store and show her here it is. So, yeah, I don't have to think that she's proud of it. I know that she is.
Well, and how could she not be? I mean, 8 countries, you said, millions of people. It's just evident your passion for these big issues of community inclusion, independence, dignity. I mean, those are all topics and things that we all want in our community and for our loved ones. So again, if we just want to make sure that folks know, you mentioned the idea of like talking to the store manager. Can you tell us again where our listeners can download that store request form, just so we can make sure that they have it, or if they have any questions, how they can get in touch with you so that we can help empower this next generation of parent advocates and self-advocates to get these in, like you said, every store in the country.
So to get the store request form, that is on the CART website, which is carolinescart.com, no apostrophe, just carolinescart.com. More information on me, what I do, and how to get in touch with me is my personal website, which is drewannspeaks.com.
And Drew Ann, you are just an incredible advocate and story. And I think that as a mom, your drive and passion is something that is not only inspiring, it's motivating. It motivates me. I'm from small town Iowa, right? I often felt like, how can I be the one to impact this change? But hearing you talk, it's just about doing what you do every day and just not giving up. And so to me, that's the bigger message, right? To not give up, and that anyone can do this, that inclusion is possible. So as we get ready to wrap up, we just have about 4 or 5 minutes left here in the show. I really like for you to think about the name of our show, I Am Able. And what does that mean to you when you think about it with your lived experience? How has I Am Able resonated with you and your business?
I think everyone is able in their own capacity, whatever that capacity is. I've always said to people about Caroline, I don't know what her mental capacity is, but I want Caroline to live her life to the fullest, whatever that means for her. We all have challenges. Yes, I don't have a disability like my daughter does, but it doesn't mean that I don't face trials and tribulations as well. So I am able to me means I'm going to do as much as I can. Caroline is going to do as much as she is able to do. And we can't limit that for anyone. I think we need to remove limitations, break those glass ceilings, as I used to say, and watch and see what happens. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to risk and reach your fullest potential, whatever that is.
And I agree. And it's more than just, being able to shop. It also leads to other conversations like gainful employment for people with disabilities, right? Volunteer opportunities for people with disabilities, and just breaking that inaccessibility cycle that continues to perpetuate in everyday life. Duran, your story is simply so inspiring, and I am so grateful that Doug recommended you to be on our show. Again, Caroline's life and impact is undoubtedly huge, and the work that you've done is making such a difference. I just want to thank you so much again for being on today's show.
Well, thank you for having me. I depend on people like you who do allow me to continue my advocacy work.
Well, it's truly an honor and a pleasure. This is KHOI Story City Ames, and you're listening to I Am Able Iowa. I Am Able Iowa airs the first and last Saturday morning of each month at 9 a.m. on KHOI 89.1 FM. You can also hear us streaming live online at khoifm.org. We invite you to share comments, questions, and program ideas with us at doug@thearcofiowa.org. And if you visit www.thearcofiowa.org, you'll find previous episodes and more information about our program. I Am Able Iowa is produced by the Arc of Iowa, headquartered in Des Moines, Iowa, with local chapters here in Ames and across the state. Thank you for listening, and until the next time, this is Nancy Baker Curtis and Zach Meekum saying, You are able, Iowa.